The forbidden blade. The jungle air was thick and hot. Dane Carter could barely breathe as he pushed through the tall red plants that reached over his head. His boots sank into the soft mud with every step. Sweat rolled down his face, mixing with blood from a cut above his brow. His escape pod had crashed hours ago. He was tired, hungry, and lost on a moon no human had mapped. Something roared behind him, a deep, wet sound that made his spine go cold. He didn't look back. He just ran. Branches snapped as he stumbled downhill. The roar came again, closer now. The trees opened suddenly, and he fell forward into a strange clearing. The air was cool here, quiet, peaceful, almost sacred. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone pedestal. It was carved with glowing blue lines, old and sharp, like lightning frozen in rock. And there, stuck deep in the center, was a huge blade. It was longer than Dane was tall, with a wide black edge that shimmered in the air. Vines grew around its hilt, as if the jungle had tried to claim it and failed. His eyes widened. That thing, it could cut through anything. Another roar echoed behind him. Dane didn't think. He ran to the blade, grabbed the hilt with both hands, and pulled. It moved. The vines snapped. The stone cracked, then the blade slid free with a loud ring, like thunder in metal. At once the jungle fell silent. Even the wind stopped. Dane looked at the weapon in his hands. It felt alive. A strange warmth moved up his arms. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't even trained to use swords. But this one felt like it was made for him. Then the earth shook. Trees bent. Birds scattered into the sky. And from the shadows of the jungle they came. Tall figures armored in dark bone and metal stepped into the clearing. Their eyes glowed like stars. Their skin was deep gray, their bodies thick with muscle. Each carried a weapon as big as Dane's body. One of them stepped forward. She was the tallest, nearly 10 feet high, and carried herself like a queen of war. Her armor was cracked with old scars. Her white hair was tied in long braids. She looked at the blade in Dane's hands, then at Dane himself. Her golden eyes narrowed. "You," she said in a deep, strange accent. "You drew the soul fang." Dane raised the blade, unsure. I didn't mean to. I was just running. I didn't know." The woman stepped closer, her face unreadable. The other warriors bowed their heads as she passed. "I am Kisara," she said, "commander of the Vahari. That blade has not been touched in 500 seasons. Only a chosen one may draw it. And you, human, have done what even our strongest could not." Dane shook his head. "I didn't know it was special. I was just trying to survive." Kisara's eyes gleamed. "Then survival has chosen you for something greater." She dropped to one knee. The other warriors followed her lead. "You are now bound to me. By Vahari law you must be claimed." Dane blinked. "Claimed?" Kisara stood again, towering over him. Her voice was steady and calm. "You have taken the blade of my clan. Our laws are clear. The one who draws the soul fang must become the mate of its guardian. That guardian is me." Dane took a step back. Wait, what? "No, I'm just a guy from Earth. I don't even know how I got here. I don't want to marry anyone." Kisara frowned. "This is not marriage, human. This is sacred duty. To refuse me is to break the bond of the blade. It will bring ruin to my people." Dane's heart pounded. His hands were shaking. This couldn't be real. "I just need help," he said. "Fix my ship. Let me go home." Kisara tilted her head. "You no longer belong to Earth. The blade has claimed you. And I will not let you go." Behind her, one of the warriors stepped forward. "He is unworthy," the male growled. "A human? He mocks our ways?" Kisara turned her head slowly. "Challenge me, then." The male backed away. She looked back at Dane. "Come with me. You will be prepared. The claiming rite begins at dawn." Dane's knees felt weak. He didn't even know what a claiming rite was. But he understood one thing. He had drawn the wrong sword. And now, a 10-foot alien warrior wanted to own him. The claiming rite. The night was too quiet. Dane Carter sat on a stone bench inside a strange round room. The walls were made of black metal, smooth and cold, with glowing symbols running along the edges. Everything about the Vihari fortress felt ancient and alive, like the building itself was watching him. He ran a hand through his messy hair and tried to breathe. He had survived the crash. He had escaped the beast in the jungle, but somehow pulling that massive blade from the stone had been the worst mistake of his life. Or maybe the biggest change. He wasn't sure yet. His reflection stared back at him from a glass panel. Dirty face, torn shirt, bruises on his neck. But in his hand was a mark, a glowing symbol, like a tattoo made of fire. It had appeared when he touched the blade. The mark pulsed like a heartbeat. The door opened with a soft hiss, and Kisara entered. She didn't wear armor this time. She wore something simpler, tight, dark clothing that wrapped around her body like cloth and leather. Even without the armor, she looked dangerous. Her arms were strong, her eyes sharp, her steps silent. And still she carried herself like a queen who feared nothing. Dane stood up quickly, unsure if he should bow or salute or run. Kisara didn't speak at first. She just looked at him, slowly, from head to toe, as if she was studying him, measuring him, judging him. "You slept?" she asked finally, voice low and steady. "Not really," Dane said. "Your guards outside the door have been growling all night." She didn't smile, but something in her golden eyes softened just a little. She walked closer and stood before him. "The Vihari do not sleep when a rite approaches. We prepare. You should do the same." "I told you," Dane said, his voice more nervous than angry. "I don't want to be part of this rite thing. I didn't mean to take your sword. I didn't know any of your laws." Kisara tilted her head. "You think the blade listens to accident? You think the soul fang is blind?" "I think I was just trying not to get eaten by something." "With 4 jaws," Dane muttered. She studied him for a long moment. "The blade chose you," she said again. "And so the rite must begin. You will stand before my clan at sunrise. You will prove your courage, your worth, your will to protect, or you will die." Dane's heart stopped. "Wait, what?" "The claiming rite is not a wedding," she said simply. "It is a trial. You are now bound to me by ancient law, but the bond must be tested. There will be 3 trials, one of strength, one of spirit, one of blood. If you fail any, the blade will reject you, and the bond will break. That break will kill us both." Dane sat back down. The weight of her words crushed his chest. "Why me?" he whispered. "Why would the blade pick me? I'm not brave, I'm not strong, I'm not even a soldier." Kisara crouched in front of him, so close now he could see the silver scar over her right cheek. "Maybe the blade saw something inside you," she said. "Something you do not see yet." Then she stood and turned toward the door. "You have 1 hour to prepare. The warriors will guide you to the arena." Before she left, she paused. Without turning around, she said softly, "Do not run. If you run, they will hunt you. If you fight, you might live." And then she was gone. The arena was carved into a deep pit of black stone, lit by glowing torches and floating fire orbs. Thousands of Vihari gathered in the dark, their glowing eyes watching from the cliffs and ledges. They didn't cheer. They didn't shout. They simply waited, silent and still, like shadows in armor. Dane stood in the center of the pit, wearing strange armor made for him by the Vihari, light but strong. In his hands he held a short spear, nothing like the great blade he'd drawn. That one had been taken from him the moment he entered the fortress. Across the arena, a great gate rumbled open. Out came the first trial, a beast with 4 legs, a long tail and armor plates growing from its skin like living rock. Its eyes glowed red. Its breath hissed with heat. The creature roared and charged. Dane ran. He wasn't proud of it. He didn't mean to. His legs just moved. The ground shook behind him. The crowd didn't move. Kisara watched from a high ledge, her arms crossed. The beast slammed into the wall, behind him, and Dane spun, raising his spear. He dodged left, then rolled right. The spear jabbed, but it bounced off the beast's hide. Think, Dane. Think. He remembered something from survival training. Weak points. Every animal has one. The next time the beast lunged, Dane didn't run. He dove under it, rolled between its legs, and drove the spear up into its belly where the armor was thin. The creature shrieked, twisted, and fell. Silence. Then, a slow rising hum from the crowd, a sound of respect. Kisara smiled. First trial, she said aloud, is past. But even as Dane stood there, panting and bloody, he knew the worst was still to come. The trial of fire and blood, the scent of burning oil filled Dane's lungs as he stepped into the second arena. This time there were no walls, no torches, no audience, just fire. The sky above was choked with ash, and the ground beneath his boots, cracked with heat. Tall iron spires surrounded the field, each one spewing flames into the air. Lava bubbled in distant pits. It looked like the heart of a volcano, and maybe it was. Dane wiped sweat from his eyes. His armor was already hot enough to cook him. His hands were blistered from the last fight. He didn't know how much longer he could last. But the trial wasn't waiting for him to be ready. A voice echoed across the molten valley, deep and cold. Step forward, chosen. The fire does not test your strength. It tests your spirit. The blade must see if your heart will burn or break. Dane looked around. There was no visible enemy this time. No beast charging at him. No blade to block. Only the path ahead, lined with stone markers that glowed red, and a single bridge made of chain and bone suspended over a river of lava. He understood then. This trial wasn't about fighting something outside. It was about facing what lived inside. He took a breath and walked forward. Every step across the bridge felt like a lie. Dane's legs shook. The chain links wobbled under his weight. Heat rose, from below in waves, curling up his nose, filling his mouth, pressing into his chest like invisible hands. And then the whispers started. They didn't come from the Vihari. They didn't come from speakers or spirits. They came from his own head. You don't belong here. You're just a lost human. She'll never love you. You'll fail. Just like you always do. The voice was his own. It sounded like him, but twisted, cruel, cold. He stopped walking. The lava roared below. Sweat poured down his face. He remembered Earth. The people who'd laughed when he joined the Explorer program. The officers who called him weak. The father, who left. The girlfriend who said, "You always give up when it matters. They were all right, weren't they?" He closed his eyes. But then, he saw Kisara. Not the warrior, not the commander. He saw her watching him from the ledge after the first trial. Not with pride, but with hope, with belief. She hadn't just wanted him to win. She had needed him to win the blade, the cursed glowing blade. It had chosen him. Maybe he didn't understand why, but maybe that didn't matter. Maybe he didn't need to be strong, as long as he didn't back down. Dane opened his eyes, gritted his teeth, and kept walking. The whispers grew louder. The bridge trembled. The heat rose higher, and then he stepped onto the other side. The whispers stopped. The flames pulled back, and the ground before him cracked open with a hiss, revealing something new. A dark pit, round, silent, with blood-stained stone walls and deep claw marks etched into the floor. A final voice echoed in the air, low and ancient. "The fire has judged your spirit. Now the blood must know your truth. One more trial remains." Dane stared into the pit. He didn't want to go in, but he knew he would. He dropped down into the pit and landed hard on the stone floor. Pain shot through his knees, but he stood up. Across from him stood his opponent. It wasn't a beast. It was a man, a Vihari male, tall and broad, his body marked with the black paint of war. His eyes burned with fury. He held a long axe with a blade shaped like a crescent moon. "My name is Varric," the warrior said. "I was to be her mate. I trained for years, fought for the rite. And now, the blade gives her to a human?" Dane didn't answer. He couldn't. The rage in the man's voice was too raw, too real. "I will break you," Varric said. "If you survive me, the bond is true. If not, then your bones will feed the fire." Without warning, he charged. Dane barely raised his short blade in time to block the strike. Sparks flew. The force knocked him back. He rolled, got up, swung, missed. Varric was faster, stronger. Every blow felt like thunder. But Dane kept moving, kept dodging, kept breathing. He wasn't a warrior, but he wanted to win. And sometimes that was enough. Varric came at him again, swinging high. Dane dropped to one knee and stabbed forward, straight into the warrior's leg. Varric roared and kicked him across the pit. Dane's head hit the stone wall. Blood filled his vision. But he rose, again. The crowd above began to chant. Soft at first, then louder, not for Varric, but for him. Shatharan. Shatharan. The word meant fire soul. Dane didn't know what it meant exactly, but he felt it. Varric charged one last time, axe raised high. Dane didn't block. He stepped into the swing, grabbed the warrior's arm, and drove his blade into Varric's chest. Both men collapsed, silence, then thunder. The crowd erupted in noise. The torches blazed brighter. The sky flashed with lightning. Kisara leapt down into the pit and ran to him. Her arms were warm, her hands gentle. She cradled Dane like he was something precious. "You did it," she whispered. "You passed the rite." Dane tried to smile. His lips were too bloody. "I don't feel like a winner." But Kisara looked into his eyes and said softly, "You are not mine because you won. You are mine because you stood." Her people's fury. Dane woke in a chamber of stone and silk. Soft light drifted through a lattice of glowing crystal above him. The scent of herbs filled the air, clean, sharp, and foreign. His body ached in places he didn't know he had muscles. His chest was wrapped in thick bandages, and every breath reminded him of the brutal fight with Varric, but he was alive. Barely. He blinked slowly, and as his vision cleared, he saw her. Kisara sat at his side, her tall form bent forward in silence. Her fingers rested lightly on his arm. She wasn't armored now, only a simple dark robe wrapped around her shoulders, leaving one arm bare, the mark of her clan glowing faintly against her skin. She didn't notice he was awake at first. Her face was drawn, tired. She looked less like a warrior, and more like something ancient and sad. Then her golden eyes flicked up and met his. "You survived," she said softly. "Not by much," Dane whispered, his throat dry. Kisara gave a small nod. She reached for a carved bowl and lifted it to his lips. The drink inside tasted like melted snow and spices. It burned going down, but cleared the fog in his head. He licked his lips. Did I pass the last trial?" Kisara's voice was quiet. "You did. The blade accepts you. The bond is sealed." A heavy silence followed those words. Dane stared up at the glowing crystals and let that truth settle into him. He had been tested, body, spirit, and blood, and somehow he'd passed. But as soon as he sat up, he noticed something else. The guards outside the room weren't just guards anymore. They were angry. Their eyes glared through the doorway like burning coals. Their hands gripped weapons tighter than necessary. The silence in the hallway outside wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. "Something's wrong," Dane said. Kisara didn't answer right away. She looked away. Then she stood and faced the door. "The elders have summoned the circle," she said. "They are calling it betrayal." "What? Why?" "You are human," she said plainly. "You are not of the Vahari. Some believe the rite was corrupted. that I allowed a stranger to touch what should never be his. But the trials do not matter to them, she interrupted. They are afraid that the old laws have been twisted, afraid that a human may now hold power among us. She turned back to him, jaw clenched. They demand I release the bond, that I cast you aside before the next full cycle. Dane's voice caught. And if you don't? Kisara walked toward him slowly, her eyes glowing brighter with each step. Then war. Between clans. Blood in the stone. You will be hunted. And I will be stripped of my title, exiled, or executed. Dane's heart sank. He couldn't speak. All of it hit him at once. The trials, the bond, the cost. He had thought the danger ended after the arena. He had thought winning meant safety. But in truth, it had only lit the fire. The Hall of Judgment was an open space surrounded by towering pillars. Ancient banners hung from the ceiling, each one marked with the sigils of the old clans. The floor was marked with sacred lines in glowing ink, and in the center stood the circle of elders, 8 towering Vihari, each older than the stone they stood on. Their armor was ceremonial, but the power in their eyes was sharp as blades. Kisara stood tall before them, shoulders squared, jaw locked. Dane stood behind her, wrapped in Vihari robes, still weak but upright. The eldest stepped forward. Her voice was like sand sliding across steel. This union is unclean, she said. The blade may have chosen him, but it is still a human hand. Our ancestors never meant for outsiders to hold our power. Kisara's reply came like thunder. The blade is not bound by blood. It is bound by will. And this human, this man, has proven more honor than any warrior born in the last 10 seasons. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Some nodded. Others hissed. Another elder stepped forward. His eyes were cold. And what of Varric? A warrior lost. A bond denied. Varric chose hate, Kisara said. Dane chose mercy. Dane stepped forward then, voice trembling but clear. I didn't come here to take anything, he said. I didn't want power, I didn't want a mate, I just wanted to survive. But your blade chose me. I tried to walk away and your law said I couldn't, so I stayed. I fought. I bled. And I will not dishonor that now. The chamber fell silent. Then, slowly, a low growl broke the air. It came from behind them. Dane turned. 3 Vihari warriors stepped into the hall, unmarked, faces hidden behind war masks. They moved too fast to be ceremonial. Assassins. Kisara reacted first, spinning and pulling her short blade free. The first assassin lunged toward Dane. Steel met bone. Sparks flew. Kisara blocked the strike with her arm and slashed the attacker down in one motion. Blood hit the floor. The second came at her flank. She ducked low, spun, and drove her blade upward, straight through the warrior's chest. The third turned. On Dane. But he wasn't helpless anymore. He grabbed a fallen spear, lifted it just in time, and drove the blunt end into the attacker's throat. The warrior collapsed, choking on his own breath. Silence returned. Then one elder stepped forward, eyes wide with disbelief. Even now, she said, she protects him with her life, and he does not run. Another elder lowered his head. It is done, he whispered. The bond stands. Later that night, Dane and Kisara stood together on the balcony of her tower. The stars stretched endlessly above them. She looked at him, quiet. You fought back, she said. You didn't freeze. I've learned a few things since landing, on this moon. She reached up and touched the mark on his chest, the glowing symbol left by the blade. You are no longer just human. You are now something more. Dane looked into her golden eyes and asked, What happens now? Kisara turned toward the horizon. Now, the galaxy watches, and not all of them are pleased. The secret of the blade. The fortress was quiet, but Dane felt no peace. Days had passed since the attempted assassination in the Hall of Judgment. The elders had accepted the bond, officially, but Kisara's clan was still on edge. Warriors whispered behind helmets. Eyes lingered too long. Guards had doubled. Trust was a rare currency now, and most of it had vanished the moment a human proved himself worthy of the Soulfang. Dane stood alone in the sacred grove, the same clearing where it all began. The pedestal was still cracked. The vines that once curled around the sword had withered, and in the center of the altar stood the Soulfang itself, returned to its resting place by Kisara's hand. It pulsed faintly, as if remembering him. He stepped closer. The blade wasn't made of metal, not truly. It looked like stone, obsidian, and fire fused together, humming with a light only he could see. As he reached out and touched the hilt again, the pulse grew stronger, and suddenly, he heard it. Not a voice in words, but a feeling. Sharp, ancient, full of memory. It didn't speak through language. It spoke through pain. Visions flashed in his mind. A battlefield under twin suns. Vahari warriors kneeling around a dying queen, her blood soaking the earth. The blade, glowing red hot, buried in her chest by her own hand, and then sealed in stone. A vow made. Only the one with a soul equal to hers could lift it again. Dane stumbled back, gasping. The grove was still again. The blade did not follow him, but the vision remained. He turned to find someone watching him. An old woman stood among the trees. Her skin was deep gray and wrinkled like folded leather. Her robe shimmered with starlight. She held no weapon, only a staff carved with runes. "You saw it, didn't you?" she said. Dane's voice was hoarse. "Saw what?" "The truth," the woman replied. "The blade's heart. Few are ever shown it. Fewer still survive it. Who are you?" "I am the seer of Kileth," she said. "Once I spoke to the old queens, now I watch over those the blade calls." She stepped closer and looked at him with ancient eyes. "You think this is about love," she said. "You think this is about Kisara, but it is not. The Soulfang does not choose for affection. It chooses for sacrifice." Dane frowned. "I've already sacrificed." "No," she said gently. "You've endured. The real test hasn't come yet." He swallowed, uneasy. "Then why did the blade choose me?" The seer leaned on her staff, "Because when you pulled it, you didn't know who you were. And the blade wanted to find out." Later, Dane returned to the inner chambers. Kisara stood at the window, staring out at the high cliffs where torches burned like stars in the night. Her posture was rigid, hands behind her back. She didn't turn when he entered. "I saw something," he said quietly. "When I touched the blade. A queen. A death, a vow." Kisara finally faced him, and something in her expression shifted. "You saw the blood memory," she said. "Only those the blade accepts are shown its past." "Why was she dying?" "She was betrayed," Kisara said. "Her mate, her people, all gone. She used the last of her strength to trap the Soulfang in stone, sealing it until one as loyal as she was could lift it again. And you thought it would be someone from your clan?" "I trained for it my whole life," she admitted. "But the blade didn't want power. It wanted pain. Yours." She stepped closer, her gaze serious. "It doesn't just want to bond with you, Dane. It wants to change you." He looked away, voice low. "I think it already has." That night, an alarm rang through the fortress. Kisara grabbed her blade. Dane grabbed his breath. They raced to the courtyard where warriors stood in tight formation, weapons drawn. A dark ship hovered above them, sleek, black, silent. No markings, no warnings. Then it opened. What stepped out wasn't a Vahari. It was something else. Tall, armorless, cloaked in ash. Its skin was blue-gray, its face hidden beneath a silver mask, and in its hand it held a blade, one that looked just like the Soulfang. A collective gasp swept through the warriors. "No," Kisara breathed. "It's impossible." The masked figure's voice rang out deep and echoing. "Return what was stolen. The Soulfang is not yours, it belongs to the Bloodforged. Dane stepped forward, hand on his own sword. What are the blood-forged? The figure turned its head toward him. You carry the mark, it said. You carry her flame, and for that, you must die. The courtyard exploded into chaos. Kisara shouted orders as warriors surrounded Dane. The masked being moved with speed that made no sense. One blink, and it was inside the circle. A blur of strikes, graceful and cruel. Blades clashed, sparks flew, and then it was gone, vanished in a pulse of dark light. But it had left something behind. A mark burned into the ground, the same one glowing on Dane's chest. Later, bruised and silent, Dane sat alone beside the Soul Fang, staring at the mark on his skin. Kisara sat across from him, voice quiet. We always believed the Soul Fang was ours, that it belonged to the Vihari. But we were wrong. He looked up, his voice flat. So what happens now? Kisara met his eyes. Now, we fight for it. The war of the clans, the drums of war did not begin with thunder. They began in whispers. Whispers of betrayal. Whispers of fear. Whispers that the blade was never truly Vihari, that the human who held it was not a champion, but a curse. And like a slow-moving fire in dry brush, those whispers spread, across mountains, over rivers, through the skies, to every corner of the scattered Vihari clans. Within a week, 4 banners fell from the high circle. Clans loyal to Kisara tore down their old colors and hoisted new ones, marked not with their ancestral beasts or flames, but with a human hand curled around a blade of fire. To the traditionalists, it was blasphemy. To the broken, the exiled, and the forgotten, it was hope. Dane. Carter had become more than a man. He had become a symbol, and symbols make enemies faster than they make allies. The fortress of Koresh, once silent and solemn, now groaned beneath the weight of preparation. Smiths hammered day and night, sparks flying like fireflies in the dark. Armor was reforged, blades were sharpened, flight beasts were fed and saddled. War banners snapped in the cold wind. Dane watched it all with a hollow feeling in his gut. He had trained daily, but the armor still felt foreign on his shoulders. The weight of a sword never left his hip. He wasn't the same lost explorer who had crash-landed in the jungle. That version of him had died somewhere between the first arena and the blood pit. This new Dane, he didn't even know if he was human anymore, not fully. The Soul Fang had changed him. It had left marks on his body, faint veins of glowing light, across his forearms like the blade's own roots growing inside him. His senses were sharper, his reflexes faster. But there were moments, quiet ones, where he didn't recognize his own reflection. And worse, there were moments he didn't care. Kisara found him on the training grounds, alone, striking at a stone dummy with fluid, precise movements. You fight like the blade now, she said, watching him from the edge of the platform. He didn't. Stop swinging. That's not a compliment, is it? She stepped forward. It means you fight like something ancient, something not meant to bend. He stopped, breathing hard, and turned to face her. So what happens when I break? Kisara looked at him for a long time, her expression unreadable. Then I will stand in your place. That night the enemy arrived. Not with a warning, not with a challenge, but with fire. Flames lit the sky as war beasts soared over the fortress walls, dropping clusters of molten death. The night erupted in screams and clanging metal. Shadows flickered between torchlight and smoke as the defenders rallied to their posts. Dane and Kisara rushed to the command ledge, where her war captains shouted orders. 3 clans had united against them: the Korthan, the Dreadborn, and the ancient Bloodforged. And leading them was a being not of the Vihari, a masked figure wielding a mirror of the Soul Fang, its blade humming with deep red energy. Kisara's eyes narrowed as she pointed to the battlefield. That is not just a warlord, that is a forged blood, an enemy from the age of betrayal. You said they were myths. I said they were gone. I never said they weren't real. The battle began before dawn. Dane stood at the center of the Vihari shield wall, flanked by warriors who once doubted him. Now they guarded him like a living relic. When the enemy slammed into their line, Dane fought like he had in the trials, not with perfect skill, but with heart and fury. He parried a blow from a Korthan warrior, ducked a spear, then drove his blade through a masked attacker's ribs. Blood splashed his face. A scream rang out to his right. He turned just in time to catch Kisara's signal. She pointed toward the rear line. They were being flanked. Dane broke from the line and ran with her, climbing over a fallen wall, sliding down scorched stone. Smoke burned his eyes. Ash clung to his skin. He reached the lower courtyard just as the forged blood appeared. Then, being stood in the middle of the corpses, its blade dripping with black ichor, its voice rang out, impossibly calm. "You are the vessel," it said. "The blade's final gamble." Dane stepped forward, his hand tightening around the Soulfang's hilt. "If you want the blade," he said, "then come take it." The forged blood raised its weapon. The sky rumbled above, and then everything exploded. The clash of their blades shook the fortress. The Soulfang screamed with every strike, singing with white fire. Dane moved faster than he ever had, not from skill, but from bond. The blade guided him. It whispered in the gaps between breaths. It saw the enemy's strikes before they came, but the forged blood was stronger, older, unyielding. "You are not worthy," it growled. Dane spat blood. "Neither were the ones who came before me. But I'm still here." Kisara joined the fight, her blade dancing like silver lightning. Together, they drove the masked warrior back, step by step, until it stumbled, cracked its blade against the stone, and vanished in a flash of crimson light. The enemy had not been defeated, but it had been denied. After the smoke cleared, the wounded were tended. The dead were burned with honor. The stars returned to the sky, silent and eternal. Dane sat at the highest tower that night, the Soulfang resting across his knees. He stared at the blade, its glow soft now. Almost tired, Kisara sat beside him. "The clans will not stop," she said. "You saw it in his eyes, that thing, it's not done." "I know," Dane said. "You could run," she offered. "Leave this moon, find peace. You've already done more than anyone expected." He looked down at the blade, then up at her. "I didn't pull this sword to be a hero," he said. "But now that I have it, I won't let it fall into their hands." She touched his hand, just briefly. "Then we fight together." He nodded, and somewhere deep below, in the roots of the fortress, the blade's spirit stirred, ready for what was coming next. Her mate, her legend, the sky bled fire. Above the Vihari moon, the final wave had arrived. Ships shaped like bones and ash hung in orbit, casting long shadows across the land. From them descended the Bloodspawn, dark-armored warriors bred not from clans but from laboratories, their veins filled with liquid iron and wrath. And at their head, cloaked in a shimmering storm of red energy, descended the one known as the Forged Blood Primarch. He had no name, no breath, no warmth. He was a walking echo of the past, a failed prince of the Soulfang's first wielder, twisted over centuries into vengeance made flesh. This time, he would not retreat. And this time, Dane Carter would not back down. Within the fortress, Dane stood on the edge of the sacred tower, dressed in armor forged from both Vihari steel and earth alloys, his chest marked with the blade's glowing seal. He stared at the rising enemy ships with calm, controlled breath. So much had changed in so little time. A crash, a sword, a bond. He had fallen into another world by accident. But now, he stood as its last defense. Behind him, Kisara approached, in silence, her stride as steady as ever, though her armor bore fresh scars. "The clans are ready," she said. He turned to her. "Even the ones that wanted me dead?" She gave a soft, dry smile. "Especially them." Their fingers brushed briefly before she stepped beside him to overlook the burning horizon. "The blade won't protect me forever. he said. It doesn't have to, she replied. You are not the same man who picked it up in panic. You are the one it chose to carry its burden to the end. A pause. Then she added quietly, If we do not survive this, we will, he interrupted. Her eyes locked with his. I would rather die beside you, she whispered, than rule without you. The battlefield was no longer just stone and dirt. It was sky and lightning, metal and roar. The fortress had become a storm of fire. Vahari war beasts clashed with alien drones. Archers fired plasma-tipped arrows from high cliffs. Flamecasters unleashed waves of living fire onto enemy formations. And in the center of it all, Dane and Kisara stood together, back to back, blades flashing like twin stars against a dark tide. The soulfang pulsed in Dane's hand, not just as a weapon, but as a living extension of his will. It burned brighter with every strike, singing in harmony with his heartbeat. His movements were no longer trained. They were instinct, memory, and bond. Every time Kisara moved, he knew where she would go. When she ducked, he covered her flank. When he slipped, her blade caught the killing blow meant for him. They fought not as two, but as one. War became legend beneath their feet. Then the forged blood Primarch arrived. He did not walk. He descended, wrapped in red stormlight, landing, with such force that the ground split beneath him. His false blade shimmered with dark matter, screaming with broken echoes of the Soulfang's original song. The battlefield froze. Warriors on both sides fell back, sensing the arrival of something older than death itself. Dane stepped forward. Kisara grabbed his arm. He is not like the others. I know, he said. Then you cannot fight him alone. He turned to her, took her hand, and pressed it against his chest. I never have. The final duel was not clean. It was rage and sacrifice, ash and bone. The Primarch moved like a machine built only for destruction. His strikes split stone. His blade cut the air like silence. But Dane's blade, the blade, matched him. Glowing, white-hot now, surrounded in arcs of energy that cracked the sky above. Kisara joined the fight, her fury the storm's edge, blades flashing faster than thought. Together, they formed a dance of death. Two mortals facing something that should not exist. And then the moment came. Dane was thrown. The Soulfang skidded across the ground, flickering. The Primarch raised his false blade over Kisara, who was on one knee, wounded and exposed. No! Dane roared, running. Too far. Too late. Time slowed. Then the Soulfang pulsed. It rose from the ground and flew into his hand. In that instant, Dane understood. The blade had never wanted a warrior. It had wanted a bond. Something true, something unbreakable. Something that could not be forged by steel or fire, but by choice. He struck. The Soulfang met its twisted twin, and for a single blinding second, the battlefield turned to light. The false blade shattered. The Primarch fell. His body crumbling into dust, his storm fading into silence, and then peace. When it was over, the Vahari knelt, not out of fear, but out of respect. Not just to Dane, but to Kisara, who stood tall beside him, her arm around his shoulders as he bled, weary and spent. Together, they had done what none before them had. They had united the fractured clans. They had ended an ancient war. And in doing so, they had written themselves into the oldest of legends. Weeks passed. Rebuilding began. The Soulfang was returned once more to its sacred pedestal, but this time, not sealed in stone. It waited, exposed, watching. It no longer needed to test. It had found its story. And in time, young warriors would gather in the grove and listen to the tale. How a broken human crashed from the stars. How a warrior queen risked everything for a bond the world could not understand. And how, in the darkest hour, they stood together, Not as conqueror and captive, not as warrior and consort, but as mate and legend.